I'm Mark Imbriaco. I'm a system administrator at 37 Signals. I recently ported the polling process from our Campfire chat application to Erlang. And actually, it was surprisingly little work. It probably spread over the span of a few months, but at the end, it was only a few hundred lines of code. So it was a very small project, but I didn't know Erlang at the time when I started it. I was learning Erlang, and I kept threatening my coworkers that I was going to port the polling process to Erlang. And one of them finally got tired of me talking about it and started the process himself. So once he did it, of course, I had to jump in and change all of his code. So we got that. It started out as a learning experiment, and once we got it to the state where it seemed like it was reasonable for it to work, I kind of wrapped it up and got it ready to be deployed, and we just decided to launch it.
Excellent. So what is it written in?
It's written in Erlang now. It was written in C before.
Right. Okay.
So we replaced quite a lot of C processes with quite a small number of Erlang processes.
So why didn't you write it in Rails?
We actually, the original version of the Campfire Poller was written in Ruby, but we determined that it just wasn't fast enough at the time. That was, in fairness, that was a couple of years ago. We probably could make it work in Ruby today, but we're kind of big fans of whatever the best tool for the job is, and Ruby just wasn't the right tool.
Okay. So if it was a fight between Rails and Erlang, who would win?
It depends on what's the environment. If you're building front-end web applications, Rails wins every time. If you're building network servers or back-end kind of internet plumbing, then I think Erlang wins pretty much every time.
So what can Erlang and Rails learn from each other?
I'm not really sure that there's much they can learn from each other, but I think they can work together very well. I think you're going to see more and more Erlang code that's kind of the back end behind Rails applications. I think there's a really nice fit there that a lot of people are going to start taking advantage of.
Okay. So what's next for this project?
We have some things we're working on. We're experimenting with using some push technologies and comment. I don't know what'll come of that, but we're experimenting. We'll see what happens.
Right. Was this project within 37 Signals, or was it in your own time?
It started out in my own time, and once we got close to launching it, David and Jason, the two partners in the company, were very gung-ho to see it launched. So it started, as we got close to being able to launch, it started using company time instead of my own private time.
Okay. So what does Rails, 37 Signals and Ruby on Rails, what do they get out of it?
We get a better performing server. So at the end of the day, it just provides a better experience for our customers. Right. So we're always looking for ways to improve, and when it's a different technology, even if it's not Rails or Ruby, it doesn't make sense to stick with Rails if it's not the right choice.
So what is it about Erlang that appeals to you?
It's kind of a different way of thinking. The reason I originally got interested was kind of every year I try to look at a different programming language and try to stretch the way that my thinking about programming works. And when I chose Erlang, it was very different from anything I had done before, and it kind of stretched my mind in ways that I hadn't thought about before.
So Erlang was this year's project?
Actually, it was last year's project. I bought Joe Armstrong's book right after it came out, and I spent some time kind of learning how Erlang worked, learning the syntax. But I had a lot of trouble connecting that syntax into an actual program, how I'd build an application. And then the Pragmatic Programmers released a screencast series with Kevin Smith, and you get to sit in the back seat and look over his shoulder while he's developing an application, and that kind of helped me connect the dots from, here's the syntax of Erlang, and here's how you construct a program. And from that point, it was just a matter of finding a project. Always, when I'm learning a new program, I try to find a real project to work on. And once the Campfire Poller project kind of came to mind, it's funny because Kevin's, the example project that he works through in his screencast is a messaging server. So it's very similar to what we do, except he built it on a small scale and we built something for production. But it's very similar kind of concepts.
So what did you learn in 2009 then?
I guess 2009 has been more Erlang so far. So I guess maybe it's a 2-year project for me.